One, and we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill, and I am joined, as ever, by the indie developer Mr. Christopher Jarvis.
Hello.
Listening to our podcast because he's a maniac.
I'm a fan. What can I say?
A big fan. The fan. The mega fan.
Someone's got to check the chat. Who knows? We might get someone come along today.
Maybe. Just first time for everything, right? I don't know. All right, man. We've got a few things to run through today. We've got some more rumors flying around about PlayStation and what they're up to, as you can see by the thumbnail. But also, we've got some stuff to talk about a voice actor that is currently in the fire online. But we'll get around to that eventually at some point.
It's not me.
It's not you, for once. God, good on you, Chris. Don't Google Chris's name. It's going to be an ongoing joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, starting out before we get into any of the big news stories. Chris, sir, what have you been playing?
Hello. So I've been playing a bit more Mario Odyssey on the old Switch, which has been fun. I got around to playing 12 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I did sink a few hours into that. And it's basically just to recap everything you said. It's kind of fun at first, kind of gets repetitive. It'd be a whole lot better if there was a skip button. I got stuck and then just started looking up what I needed to do, and then I did that a couple of times.
That's the death, isn't it? Like when you start doing that, like it's sort of the game's sort of killed at that point, you know.
Yeah, and there was one tiny bit that I forgot to do. Spoiler alert: I just didn't take down the phone number that I needed, and so I had to restart again. And I was like, do I restart again just to get the phone number, just to restart again, just to be able to call the phone, even though I'd read a little bit further on and I knew what had happened in that next restart. So then I was thinking 3 restarts down the line, and I just thought, you know what,
not worth it.
11 o'clock. I think I got the idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm satisfied enough. I don't think.
So you're not going to finish it? No.
Because the only thing you actually get rewarded with is, the voice acting is, can't fault it.
Oh yeah,
there's some pros.
It's great. I mean, they've got who was it?
I can't recognize him. It's just
McAvoy
unrecognizable.
And Daisy
Ridley.
Like really funny. Like I'm just constantly in giggles thinking about them poor people. You know, both like McAvoy is like pure Scottish, like Glasgow Scottish lad, and and Daisy Ridley is
Daisy's
like
kind of London,
from London, like kind of RP-ish, you know, like she's quite, a very staunch like English person, and then just the thought of these two people being in a room like putting on these phony American accents, like it must have drove them insane. Like they must have been cracking up between takes.
And living in this teeny tiny little bedsit that's just two rooms and a bathroom, and not even a telly. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah.
I kind of like 12 minutes was a funny one for me because I kind of liked the concept of the game more than the game itself, if that makes sense.
And I think you might have not taken or inspired by, but I think that it at least is of a standard where I can see some crossovers with your game that you're making.
Sure.
In terms of just the UI and things and how they're using UI and specific items, and I know it's nothing original in that respect.
Oh yeah. No, I don't take any offense to that whatsoever. I think the thing that I take away from 12 minutes, and which is a good point to sort of remember for any indie dev, I guess, is like the scope of it is great in terms of like if you're a solo dev or if you're a very small team, like that's the size of game that you should be looking at doing. Like anyone could have, like I'm sort of regretting the fact that I've got 2 houses in my indie game now instead of just having one bedsit room like 12 minutes, because that would have been infinitely easier. So it's sort of like it makes you think, like, oh, like where can I trim down and sort of like come up with a lot more original ideas in just a smaller setting almost. But
I think it does prove a point with like how small a space can you have a video game in with, A-list celebrities voice acting that can have, I'm not going to say critical success, but I'm going to say, in the zeitgeist, it's a well-known game. Lots of influential people have played it, and lots of people have talked about it, including us on this podcast,
right?
Twice now.
Yeah.
And how many indie games can say that? So they have done something impressive.
Right.
Did it deliver? Unfortunately not. But I'd like to see what they come up with next.
Oh, they made their money either way. That's the thing. I mean, the one thing, the piece of credit which I will give that studio, I can't even remember who made it, but the credit which I will give them is they spent their money in the right place. Like by having James McAvoy and William Dafoe and Daisy Ridley on that game, they probably dropped 90% of their budget in those 3 voice actors, and that was kind of a good move because it gave them all of this. Like they hired them for a day and then filmed them, did all these interviews because they got hired for the day, and they probably recorded everything in 1 day or 2 days even.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
probably 1 or 2 day session. Yeah,
they got a documentary out of it. They got making ofs, all that sort of stuff, and it just like created this marketing machine just from these 3 voice actors that they had. And that sort of did all the legwork for them. They didn't have to like market that game any more than what they did because of that. And then obviously Game Pass helps out.
Certain, it gives it certain viability when you have actors. Like well-known actors bring in audiences. It's not rocket science.
Unfortunately, that is the truth.
Yeah. So they had a budget. They spent it in the right place. I completely agree. But now we know. So yeah, when we're thinking of levels and how big they can be, and like that's stupidly small. Not so. Like the size of the actual playing space never felt cheap. It never felt like it was an issue. Like I never felt. It didn't even feel that claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Because it actually just meant that things weren't that far away from the player, so that when they had to pick stuff up or move stuff, they didn't have to travel a million miles. So that bit wasn't too bad. If anything, the size of it helped, but it showed up the lack of skip button and the like waiting for the animations to play out and waiting for something to get drank or waiting for going to bed, waiting for the clock to when the animation of the clock appears, like waiting for that to finish. Like it showed up those bits, and that's where the frustration came from for me. But it was interesting, an experience. I'm glad I played it, and I went in expecting the emotions that I came away with. So in that respect, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like.
Right.
Yeah. But we've talked about it twice now on the show. So
that's for sure.
There's that. We both played it, and even though we spoke about it and you thought the same as what I did in terms of your overall impression of it, it still made me want to play the game. So it's like one of those, I need to play it and see kind of games, which, is better than a bad game.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was a very, very... mediocre is probably too strong, but it was a very average game. It's aggressively average. That's the best way.
It's very okay. Yeah, it's a very okay game. Yeah.
And it's like the perfect Game Pass game as well. I think that's the best way to describe it. So it's like no harm, no foul. You can finish it in an evening. If you don't finish it, then you'll probably like find some interesting little bits in there either way. Like it's a really unique way of telling a story, and just like the top-down nature of it all, and just there's bits in there. Like I keep saying, I think the concept is much better than the game itself almost, and I agree with you. I think their next game could be something special, like if they are given the chance.
This is the weird thing as well. It's like, for me with my game designer brain, if it had a skip button so that you knew you got to a certain bottleneck and you wanted to repeat that process, even though there's different ways of going about it and different ways of instigating other things, blah blah blah, because they've got lots of branching narratives. For me, most people aren't going to want to exhaust every single narrative thread. They just want to play the game, get an ending.
Yeah.
So if they implemented a skip button, and if they implemented a help button, because I got stuck and I had to look it up, I would have preferred a hint button to tell me what I should do.
Yeah.
I think that game would be tremendously improved with those two tiny things. Like my impression of that game would just jump up if those two things were implemented. So
I am curious about this though, because I think I wonder if anything. I wonder if they purposely like didn't put them things in just to keep the game length a bit longer than the 2 hours, which it probably would have been if you had all these things. And if it was
because on Steam people would have refunded it. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I would argue that the fact you got A-listers would negate
push
any
through that
sales that you would have lost from people refunding in Steam.
Yeah, obviously just speculating, but I'd be curious if that was the case. Like if the reason why they didn't have like a skip cutscene button or like a fast forward button to do certain things, because if you've seen the same thing over and over again, you just want to fast forward through it sometimes. Because I think I finished
skip the dialogue. You could skip the
Yeah.
dialogue, but it just wasn't good enough. And you could only go twice the speed. And it got to the point where I was actually skipping new dialogue that I'd not heard before because I just wanted to get to the next bit that I'd read about.
Yeah.
Probably not the best way to play it. But
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, have you? Did you play anything else?
Well, apart from that, I've been watching a streamer. So because I'm doing my game, I've actually found that I can watch a streamer and do my indie game at the same time, which is really good for my productivity.
Okay.
It's Ashley Amelia, so shout out to Ashley Amelia, who's streaming on Twitch. So go check that out. And she was playing a bit of Fortnite, which I'd never actually sat down and watched before. So that was interesting, getting my head around that, the nuts and bolts of it.
Right.
It's actually more interesting. There's a reason why it's really popular. And I can see that now, so that's good. And Boyfriend Dungeon. So we talked about Boyfriend Dungeon.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Well.
I remember that.
We'd speculated a lot about this, that, and the other, and actually got some hours in with it over the last week. And its praise is well received. Like it deserves the praise it's
well
got.
earned.
Like
yeah.
a lot of people really like it. It's really funny. The double entendres are just hilarious. The characters interweave in an interesting way. It's not cookie cutter. The writing especially, I think, is actually really funny and really well done. And the world gels together. Like the world building is really good. Like the world is crazy and manic, and they've got really adult themes, but the way it's all written seems to feel real and grounded and its own world. So yeah, that's been really fun actually. And again, I thought, it's going to be girly, or because it's Boyfriend Dungeon, it's not really, as a straight guy, it's not something that you'd think would appeal to me. But you find yourself rooting to go
for certain
with
couples,
one boyfriend or another boyfriend, or like, oh no, go with that person because it's a dagger, or because they can change into swords. Obviously.
Yeah, I heard like each of them are. I know there's definitely an innuendo in there somewhere turning into swords. But yeah, because I know each of the boyfriends, right? They're different weapons. Is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
and
kind
there's
of
there's a bisexual guy, and he turns into an axe. I've yet to see what type of axe, but it has to be a double-headed axe. So you can swing both ways, and if it's not,
swing both ways. I get
riot.
it. Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is really funny.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Cool.
And just one example. You go to a cat cafe where there's cafes with cats.
Yeah.
And you go on a date with a girl.
I don't get it.
So you pet cats.
I get it.
Okay.
Got it.
So, just like, it's well thought out.
Bit on the nose.
Well, it took you long enough then.
Yeah, but I went straight over that one because I can't be that simple. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing. But what if I managed to get over my Jurassic World Evolution Park?
Nice.
Sim.
So you've joined all the heroin addicts and all the alcoholics. You're in remission now.
Yeah, I'm a grateful
that's good
addict.
Yep. AA meetings for Jurassic World.
Jurassic World. Yeah.
Jurassic World. Sorry.
Jurassic World. But you were mentioning before the show that the second one's not been doing very well. They've released
Frontier Developments, the developer. Like I can give it the quote here from Games Industry Biz. Said that Frontier sees a net loss of 1.7 million. UK developer marks a decline for their early sales of Jurassic World Evolution 2, were quote-unquote lower than expected. Frontier Developments have released its financial reports for the last 6 months and ended on November 30th, 2021, reporting a 1.7 million or $2.3 million dollar, if you want to say, because it's 1.7 million in pounds.
1.7 million.
Yeah,
Weird.
so 2.3 net loss for the first half of the fiscal year. What does that mean?
Right.
Like anyone listening to this, like nobody knows. In a normal
Sounds
studio, it sounds a lot, and it sounds very little as well. Like if you compare it to like a third-party publisher, what people don't know about Frontier Game Studios is that they are the UK's biggest indie developer. They aren't published by anyone. Like they are independent. So a 1.7 million pound loss in the first half of or the second half of 2021 is kind of big. Like that's sort of worrying for them. I mean, I've sort of been speculating because the like Frontier themselves are quite primed to be bought out eventually. I think someone like Microsoft or like even Sony could plug them. I think that would be better suited to someone like Microsoft. But yeah, if there's any studio out there that's sort of primed right now, it'd probably be Frontier.
Yeah.
But a lot of that like revenue losses from the second game, unfortunately, just did not do very well. It didn't sell at all, which
It's interesting though, because they're the only that sized studio in the UK
yeah
that have that game out at that sort of time, where the first one wasn't released on Game Pass, but now I'm playing the first one on Game Pass. That's maybe why I'm not playing the second one. That might be why I've not picked it up.
Yeah, this is my sort of theory as well. I think the problem with Jurassic World Evolution 2 is like people don't know what the difference is. Like, okay, like I understand it's a sequel. Like I myself, like I have not bought Evolution 2, even though I love the first game. I've got no idea like what makes the second one more special. Like what have you added? What's different? Like obviously there's going to be new dinosaurs and all that sort of stuff. I get that, but what have you done
to make you pay money as opposed to play it free on Game Pass?
Yeah, I mean, what have you done to like justify this as a new game rather than a DLC? Like that's the real question. And I think a lot of fans have sort of just been like, I can just carry on playing Evolution 1. Like there's a load of DLCs out for it. Like there's Jurassic Park. Yeah, get it from there. I mean, that's what you've been doing. That's what I did. So it's probably can't be that way. I will pick it up eventually though. I mean, I like you, I became a bit of an addict with just one more round, one more dinosaur, one more.
I'll just unlock this park. I'll just incubate this dinosaur.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's worth mentioning. So yeah, we know Paul there, don't we? We're trying to get him on the podcast, so hopefully we can get him on and he can have a chat. He probably won't be able to talk about the finances. I'm sure that's not his job.
I don't think he's there anymore. I think he might have left.
He might have left.
Yeah, I think he might have left a couple of years ago, but I'm sure he was there when Evolution 2 was getting worked.
I know he's definitely worked on a dinosaur game.
Yeah, I think he definitely worked on the first game. I remember seeing his portfolio.
Cool. Alrighty. What have you been playing though, Vin?
I have been playing a couple of things. First and foremost, like I kind of hit a realization point the other day. It's like I haven't touched my Switch in like 6 months. That's the thing, and I was like, I should probably play that thing. You know, I'm privileged to have all three of these consoles, like having a PS5 and Xbox Series X, and the Switch is literally been sat there. It had actual dust on it. Had to wipe it off, and I was like, okay. And then I realized like the only reason why I don't play my Switch as much is because I have to fit. Oh no, people are going to roll their eyes.
Because you've got to get a cartridge in there.
Right, I've got to take a cartridge out and put it, because I've been all digital since like 2013. So like the idea of putting a game into a console is like it's like walking up a mountain for me. That's just the deal. I had to walk in the snow and the rain. There, I'm back again. So I thought,
You live in Canada, then.
I know.
Like walking down the road is difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's
when it's snowy.
Currently, right now in Montreal, it is minus 20 Celsius, and it's going to be minus 30 tonight. Yeah, it's brisk to say the least.
C'est ridicule.
I don't know. So yeah, I finally brushed off the dust on my Switch. First thing I tried to play again, because I recently bought it, but I only put like 5 minutes into it. I started playing the remake of The Legend of Zelda. What is it? Link's Awakening. That was it. So there's a remake of it, and it looks all plasticky. It looks like a toy. Game's fine, apart from it drops down to like 15 FPS like every 5 minutes because of like whenever you come out of a house or something, the frame rate just
loading
tanks.
Everything.
Yeah, I think so.
All the objects.
I don't know. It's a really strange thing because it only really happens when text appears on the screen. So it's something to do with the UI that's tanking the game. And it's like I thought, maybe they've got a patch out for it. And there's just no patch. And people were complaining about it day one and they've just never fixed it. So I've kind of put that down because it was just like, this is awful. Like, this isn't fun because of the frame rate itself. Like, the technical issues of that game are really dragging it down. And I hope that they fix it one day. So I jumped off that and I went over to Animal Crossing. I started playing this finally. I've been putting this aside for a rainy day because I know it's like a time sink, and like you have to like check in on it every single day, and you have to go and talk to your villagers and plant like your little flowers and like earn some more money because you're in debt to Tom Nook, who's like this raccoon that's just like swindled you onto this island. And it's like, yeah, come to this paradise. Oh, by the way, you owe me 100 grand.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of funny. Like you sort of get totally hoodwinked into doing this thing. But yeah, it's just, everyone knows.
So you're a slave, basically, on an island that you can't leave. Okay, yeah. And you owe this badger.
Yeah, this raccoon is just like trying to steal every penny that he's got from you, and you're just like happily going through it because you just want to get a new recipe to build a new table or something, and you just go along with it. But there's whole communities in this game. It's a great game. Everyone knows what Animal Crossing is.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've
heard great things.
I've just started playing that. But yesterday, I very stupidly booted up an older game which I've finished a few times already. But I can never help myself. Every time I see it on my Switch starting screen, I have to hit load. But there's a game called Bad North. I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing.
No.
Bad North is a small indie game by... I can't even remember the name of the developer, but it was published by Raw Fury, so it's a single-A game. We're going with this trend. So it's not really an indie game, but it was published. Plausible Concept, I think it was. Yeah.
Plausible Concept, sorry, yes, yeah. And published by Raw Fury.
Yeah, okay. I follow the developer on Twitter as well. Like he's constantly like sharing stuff.
Oh, I see this stuff all the time, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love this stuff.
To give this is an old game. It came out a few years ago. I think it was like 2018, 17 maybe. It's basically an invasion game. Like it's a tower defense game where you're just on this little island, and you've got these little Anglo-Saxons that you've got to defend these houses with, and these Vikings are just coming in on these longboats, and there's different classes for each of the enemies, and you can also have different classes to defend yourselves with, and it's really simple and stripped down, and that's what I love about this game. It's only like 3 classes that you've got, which is your pikemen, your shieldmen, and your archers. That's it. They're your only 3 that you've got. They've all got little abilities that you can upgrade them with, and you just like, and every time you save a house you get a coin, and then you can spend them coins on your upgrades for your characters, and then the enemies that come in are all different things that are balanced towards certain classes that you've got. So if you get invaded by a bunch of archers and you've only got pikemen, they just get absolutely massacred because they got nothing to defend themselves with. But if you go in there with shieldmen, then they can just wipe out archers. So you got to find this constant balance between like who you're fighting and how you're doing it. But it's so simple and very, very hard to master at the same time, but it's such a great little game. I cannot recommend it enough. Like, it was one of my games of the year when it came out, and it wasn't my game of the year, but it was definitely like top 3. Like, I absolutely adore this game. I think it's amazing. So everyone should go and check this out. But it's a great little game.
Yeah. It looks great. I love the color palette on that thing. It's just, the colors are just
yeah, it pops. Like, it's such a unique style as well. It's very low poly, but it's very charming. Like, the sound design is amazing. The animations are great. It's just a great little game. Everyone should check this out if they can. It's constantly on sale as well. The developer went on to make a game called Townscaper, which is just like a little...
That's what I keep saying, yeah.
Yeah,
and you can build all the different towers up, and then the roofs change to match what the levels are, and...
Right.
Yeah,
it's very procedural. But great. He's like the developer that I'm following on Twitter at the moment. He's I can't remember his name, Osgard or something. I think he might be Swedish or something. I'm not sure. I apologize, dude, if you ever watch this. Probably not. But yeah, he's working on sort of like an island generator at the moment, which is very similar to sort of Bad North, but it's procedurally generated. Like, so he's not actually designing them. He's just like hitting a button and it's just making this island and
just
it's looking
randomizes
like this.
Based on. Yeah.
So I am praying there is like a Bad North 2 with procedurally generated islands, because if that was the case, like, the game would literally be playable until the end of time, and I would like, that would be my game sort of thing. Like, I would probably
like, I'm done. I'm out. I found my thing.
Yeah, screw you, Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever. Like, this is me now. But yeah, great little game. Everyone should try it out. It's always really cheap, and it's a great little Switch game. Like, it's really, really good, especially as playing handheld. You can get it on PS5 and Xbox as well, or PlayStation 4 as well, obviously. Steam. It's pretty much on every platform, but I specifically recommend it for Switch. Like, it's actually a really good little Switch game. But yeah, I love it.
Nice. You been playing anything else, or?
No, that was about it.
No?
Not really been doing too much. I've been reading a lot this week, so I've not really had that much time to play any games. But next week.
I'm both making our own games as well, so definitely play less games now that I'm making a game.
Yeah,
sure,
definitely.
Which saves my wallet, I suppose.
Indeed.
So speaking of, you can buy it on the PlayStation. You can also buy other games on PlayStation, which leads us on to our PlayStation story.
Indeed.
Which is the game, like PS GamePass thing.
Yeah.
So we've seen some movement in the industry. So PlayStation have been adding PlayStation 3 games onto the PS Store.
Yeah, with
prices.
Yeah, there's a few little bits around this story. I mean, we spoke about this a couple of episodes ago, I think, about the PlayStation Spartacus sort of
PlayStation Spartacus
rumors that have been flying around. For people that aren't in the know, the PlayStation Spartacus project by PlayStation, its codename, is PlayStation sort of answer to Game Pass. So PlayStation Game Pass, for lack of a better term, is sort of on its way, and there's a lot of things been happening this week that sort of suggest that it's imminent, and it's going to be very, very soon. Probably within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be getting some sort of announcement. We have to be, I think, just considering how people are sort of shuffling around and the news that's sort of dripping out now. It's sort of like, everything is pointing to something is inbound really, really soon. They wouldn't be doing this otherwise. But to sort of give some context to all of this, the first thing that happened was that Sony started very randomly, it seemed anyway at the time, it's obviously not random, started pulling their PlayStation Now retail cards from UK retailers. So their PlayStation Now sort of service, and something that I've always been saying for a long time, is that PlayStation Now is probably going to get either pulled or rebranded into this PlayStation Spartacus Game Pass, like new thing, whatever they're doing. So it's going to get folded in, and they're going to be renaming it anyway. And this sort of points towards that, because they've started, pulling all these retail cards. So when you go into a brick and mortar store and you buy PlayStation Now points all the time or whatever, this is where it's like sort of come from.
Yeah, they're expecting like a tier-based system where it's similar to Nintendo, potentially, where if you pay like $10 a month, you get access to X, Y, and Z, but it's going to be the lower tier. If you sign up for $20 a month, you might get more stuff, so maybe some exclusive content or access to more games or more unlockables, and then so on and so on. That's what the press seem to think is going to be the case, and I can see that happening with PlayStation. I can see them wanting to position themselves differently to Microsoft with the Game Pass, like $10 Game Pass. You get loads of stuff, all you can eat buffet. I can see them wanting to position themselves as more of the premium, gamers, like AAA content, where it's going to cost more for more unique, I don't want to things. Content. Yeah. I think that's how they're going to go. What do you think, Vin? What do you reckon their model's going to look like?
Yeah, I think a tiered system is probably correct, because they're the rumors that are coming out. Like there's been a few journalists that have sort of semi-confirmed that. Like, I'm not sure like what information they've got and how old it is. Like, it might have been from like an old presentation that PlayStation were originally thinking about, but they're like, scrap that. We're just going to do one service and sort of fold all this into one. But PlayStation very strangely have a lot of different content across different, like different generations. Unlike Xbox, which really only has a few generations, which the original Xbox 360, Xbox One, which didn't really have that many new games, but the architecture is pretty much the same as the Xbox Series X anyway. So really, they've only got like 3 platforms that they're really playing with, whereas PlayStation's got 5 of them, literally. And on top of that, they've got all of their PSP stuff and all their Vita stuff. Like, they've got a lot more sort of unique content, which is sort of gated off and lost to the wheels of time. So hopefully, if they do bring back a tiered sort of system, then it'll be including more and more of that stuff in the past, because there's people like me that really enjoys the retro stuff, but there's other people that doesn't, and they would probably prefer a tiered system where they would only have access to PlayStation 4 and 5 stuff only, and PlayStation 3 backwards is just sort of in the past.
Yeah. I get that. There'll be a lot of people that will want the modern stuff. Yeah, and the further back in time you go, the less people would want to have access to that. So are you thinking that the more premium stuff will include the further back you go? Because PS2
ironically, yeah,
architecture is still difficult to emulate.
Yeah, I guess
to believe, and so we're told, or at least it's different architecture than Microsoft's entire. So Microsoft, they can easily do backwards compatibility and have done, and PlayStation with the PlayStation 2 is. We've been told it's a lot more difficult.
The PlayStation 2 it's a half-solved problem for Sony at this point, because they started implementing a PlayStation 2 emulator into the PlayStation 4 already, and I think there's 20 PlayStation 2 games you can download and play on the PlayStation 4 and 5. So that's sort of a half-solved problem for Sony if they were to include it into a Game Pass so you could download these games. Then that's not so much the big problem, but the PlayStation 3 is the biggest problem for them, because the single cell architecture of the PlayStation 3 was very, very unique. And the only way that you can really get around that is to basically install a PlayStation 3 hardware into a PlayStation 5 or something, which they haven't done. Or they do it through the route of emulation, which Sony haven't officially released an emulator for the PlayStation 3 yet.
So can they just switch to cloud gaming? Because that's what's happened recently with Xbox on Game Pass, is that you can have the cloud gaming now. So now is the solution. We don't even need to worry about the hardware. We can have the hardware off-site, and as long as you've got a good internet connection.
Yeah, this is what that was the solve that PlayStation have already put forward with PlayStation Now, is that the only way you can play a PlayStation 3 game like Eco, like my favorite game of all time, I can't play that on my PlayStation 5 natively. The only way I can play that is through PlayStation Now through streaming. So that was that solution. But then to sort of go on back to this topic as well, is that more rumors started coming out about the PlayStation 3 games library for the PlayStation 5, which seems a bit strange, but this is also pointing to the PlayStation GamePass Spartacus thing. So on Eurogamer here, it says PlayStation 3 games are now on the PlayStation Store. Fueling rumors of backwards compatibility is on its way to PlayStation 5. So Sony are working on PlayStation 3 games to work natively on the PlayStation 5, which is extremely exciting. That's great news. They should have done this on the PlayStation 4, in my opinion, but better late than never. But I think what this sort of points towards is that gamers aren't happy with the idea of only being able to stream games. Like, it's nice to have that option, especially like if you're on a trip or something, you want to play on your phone. It's great to be able to pick up and play Halo Infinite or something through Game Pass, but ultimately, like if they're sat on their sofa, they want to be able to download the game natively so they can play it properly. Which I get that, especially if you live in a country which hasn't got great internet. Like we are fortunate enough to live in countries where we do have great internet, so we don't have to worry about this. But if you're living somewhere else, like it's kind of an impossibility, like to be able to run these games natively, like to look like they're running natively. So it's a bit of a tough situation, but that looks like it's about to change.
Yeah, we'll see. We have to wait and see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if I think it's a bit too expensive, and I think it's going to rile up the whole, PlayStation versus Xbox bandwagon on Twitter and
without a doubt. But what this does do more than anything, I think what the exciting thing is that if it isn't too expensive, or it is too expensive, or whatever, like it's still going to create competition, which is awesome. Like,
which is good.
I've been all in on this whole like subscription service ever since like this stuff started coming about. Like, a lot of people don't like it, but I play enough games where I get enough benefit out of it, where like if I'm paying 15 like USD for Game Pass, and I can just play anything that I want and all the new games that come out. If the same thing came out for PlayStation, they were like, 15 USD. I'm like, cool, I'm all in. Like, I would pay that every single month. I don't care. Like, if it's like as long as it doesn't exceed like the price of one video game, I'll happily pay like for as many services that I need. To be able to just like play whatever I want whenever I want, and I don't have to worry about like extra income or anything like that. I like the subscription model, but I know a lot of people don't. But the price is the big point though, and I think if it is a tiered system, like very very ironically, it's gonna not the tiered system is probably gonna be The cheapest version is going to be like PlayStation 5 and 4 only, and then like the further back you go, like the more money it's going to cost. So the people that want to play PS1 games are probably going to have to pay the most.
Which is weird.
It's very, very strange.
Old games. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the only way you can play them, because you can't play PlayStation 1 games on the PS4 or the PlayStation 5, which is bananas to me. Like, it's still crazy, like how that is not a solved thing. Like, it is solved. They don't like it bogging down. It
just costs too much money for them to care about it. That's what it is. Like, they save money with the status quo. That if they spend money, people will play games that are very, very old. It's not in their how do we make money from this ethos.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has come from they've like it's been interesting to see Sony try to ignore Xbox Game Pass for as long as they possibly could, and now that they're caving in, it's actually really exciting. Like because not only does this good news for PlayStation fans that like get access to this awesome new service, which is probably going to come around, they're going to learn all these lessons that Xbox has already been through. Xbox are going to have to respond to it as well, and they're going to have to like do all this sort of crazy stuff to sort of like, no, Xbox like Game Pass is still the best, like come over here, look at us, sort of thing. So there's just going to be this like for the next couple of years, there's just going to be competing services going up and up and up, and it'll be really interesting. The only people that are going to benefit out of any of this is us. Like we're the ones that are going to be like, I'll pay $15 a month for every single game in the PlayStation library. No problem. I'm good with that.
Sign me up.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it's a good time. We'll have to wait and see what happens, and whatever they do, you could argue, even if it's really overpriced, the consequences could benefit gamers as a whole.
Absolutely.
You'll still have access to more games than you would for the price of a game, which is like what $80-$90 for a AAA game these days. So.
Exactly, especially on PlayStation. Like if a game is $70, like from the get-go, like it increased by $10 like this month. If that's the amount that we're gonna pay, like, and if I'm buying like 4 full price PlayStation games a year, but I can pay less than that and get all access to all these games through a Game Pass service. Like it's sort of just
games.
And it
makes sense
that,
if you can get access to 5 or 6 games a year.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? You're still saving money by a huge margin.
Yeah, especially if you're a hardcore gamer and this is what you do. If this is your main hobby, like this is great news. Like this
still be saving money. Yeah.
And for all the people that are worried about the services stuff, like they're still going to have the games for sale, like they do on Xbox. Like there's people that don't sign up to Xbox Game Pass, then people are insane. But there's people that do that and they only buy like Madden once a year, or they buy FIFA and that's it. That's all they do.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't affect them. So it's all good either way. But I think this is great news. I'm really excited about what PlayStation have got to bring forward. It's nice to have this nice, like, sort of healthy competition between these two guys as well. Like it's been a while. Like PlayStation sort of dominated last gen, so it's kind of nice to see them go at it again. Like they were in the Xbox 360 days, you know, because there was just constantly features getting announced for them two consoles all the way through. But in the PlayStation 4 era, it sort of, I don't know, like it was a bit dry almost. Like the dominance of PlayStation got a bit boring at times. So it's nice to see them come back a bit.
It definitely felt like I backed the wrong horse back in the day for sure. But it's because that's all I knew. I wasn't really clued up to Switch at that time. But then again, you don't know when you start a console generation. You don't know what's going to happen towards the end of it. And I think most of there was a lot of good stuff that came out towards the end of the console generation. And by that time, you're too far invested. I had games that I wanted to keep dipping into every now and again. That I couldn't bring myself to like swap mid-generation. So I kind of felt like, I've hitched my horse up here. And I couldn't afford it, to be honest. Just couldn't afford to switch. I had what I had and didn't have £400-500 just kicking about. So
I think
at that time, in any case,
the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era will be studied for decades to come. I think it'd just be purely because of like the flips and the flops of that generation, like how well Xbox 360 did in the beginning and how poorly PlayStation 3 did at the beginning, and just like how they sort of flipped around by the end and the missteps that they both made in the middle, like the Red Ring of Death and how much that affected everything, and just an absolutely fascinating console like cycle in and of itself. And on top of that, they obviously had like the Wii U was just like coming around the corner when off the back of the Wii, which was like this massive success, and like Nintendo sort of had a massive downfall at that point as well. So just a fascinating sort of moment in time. But yeah, it was still a healthy moment though. That's the important thing, is like they were competing constantly. So it was great.
Games were going through incredible growth then, and then it's still going through incredible growth. It's crazy how fast it's growing. So you can have all those missteps and lose all that money, and one console can be better than the other, and you can have these three major players, but everyone's still, the industry's still growing. It's it's quite good.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of industries growing, sometimes people don't like them growing in certain ways. Chris, do you want to kick us off for our next story?
I don't know which one you're talking about. You could be mentioning either. Is it the 11 billion one, or is it the NFT one?
It's the NFT one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've been hiding under a rock and you don't use Twitter, then you wouldn't know that Troy Baker, the voice actor best known for playing Joel in The Last of Us,
and everything else in every other game,
and
apparently
everything else that you just don't realize, but he's the one that he's best known for. But he is actually in 100% of video games. You just don't know that he's in most of them.
This is true.
He's decided to partner up with Voiceverse NFT. And he tweeted this. I'm partnering with Voiceverse NFT to explore ways where together we might bring new tools to new creators to make new things and allow everyone a chance to own and invest in the IPs they create. We all have a story to tell. You can hate or you can create. What'll it be? And then there's a NFT style picture. And it's crazy we're living in a world with an NFT style picture where it's Troy's face sort of cartoonized. With Troy Baker in fancy writing behind him with some nice gradient background, which I don't know why I'm explaining it. Oh yeah, for our audio listeners, if you're listening on
this is true.
Spotify or Apple Music, and you've not seen the tweet. So this created a Twitter storm, and it's had, how many now has it had?
It's almost 13,000 quote tweets.
Nearly 13,000 quote tweets. Wow. nearly 2,500 likes.
Yeah, so
it's
very balanced towards the people have stuff to say. That's the best way to sort of describe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, I read this, and I watched the Play, Watch, Listen podcast, which has got Troy Baker in it, and that's a weekly podcast. And so I kind of feel like I know a bit more about how he uses language and how he likes to interact with people and how he likes to talk. And I knew what he meant when he said you can hate or you can create. He didn't mean it as an ultimatum, but it reads as an ultimatum. It reads as, if you don't get on board with what I'm trying to sell, then you're a hater.
Right.
And people didn't like being given that ultimatum. People didn't like being given that option, like being categorized as, oh, you're just a hater because you're not on board with what I'm on board with. And so that's what most of the clean resistance on the Twitter feed was about. It was about people not liking that aspect specifically, and the fact that lots of people don't like NFTs because of the environment.
Yeah. And
that's kind of where we are with this story as it starts. Did you see the tweet and you read it, and what were your thoughts initially?
I saw Troy Baker trending on Twitter, and I was like, oh, like what's Troy Baker in now? Like, is he announced? Like, is he in the Marvel universe now or something? I'm pretty sure he already is on
as a voice actor.
Yeah, I'm sure he is somewhere.
Well, he's definitely in. Yeah, he's definitely already is in a Marvel, I think.
Yeah.
The Avengers, isn't he?
Yeah, he was in the Avengers. That was right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that aside, I saw him trending. I was like, oh, what's this about? And then I saw that the firing squad were out for him, and it's like, oh, okay, like it's his ticket is up, I guess. Like everyone's turned on Troy Baker. Like, I wonder what he's done.
He's been cancelled. Yeah,
cancel's probably a bit too strong a word at this point, but like that people have mass disagreed with him. That's the best way to describe it.
Yes.
I saw that and I read the tweet. I thought, I don't care that much that he's like partnering someone. I'm not going to buy it, sort of thing. So like, to each his own. But I sort of get why other people might be angry, especially if, like, they're diametrically opposed to NFTs and stuff like that. And I think the majority of this is around the
it's the environmental impact of an NFT. It's like
I really don't think, because there's a lot of people trying to frame it just as you did, not disingenuously, but I think people are trying to include a lot of points into this story, which is people are like, don't like the fact that he's trying to sell us something, or don't like that he's trying to, like, oh, you're a hater if you don't like this as well, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
all of that,
or you can create. So he's choosing create with this NFT company.
I think people are like making them points to sort of like add fuel to the bigger fire, which is the problem which I have is the NFT stuff, like and that's it. That's another thing. And there's a lot of little points around this. For people that don't know, VoiceOver NFT are a company that make, I think it's AI voices. So for like indie developers, basically, or like people that are making animations and stuff that want to put scratch audio into their games or their sort of films and stuff, you buy a amount of minutes or points or whatever, or you can buy like whole voices like straight out for certain like projects that you're working on. So you can buy Troy Baker's voice basically, and you can just type out his lines, and then he just says it like through an AI audio, and it sounds like Troy Baker, but not like, it's probably still gonna have like weird AI-ish sort of ticks and stuff like that. And you'll sort of see that
superhuman. Yeah,
but I mean, but like one of the main arguments was that like, oh, this is bad because like it's sort of damaging not only your career, but it's damaging, like voice actors that want to get into industry. This is bad for them, and like it's NFTs, and NFTs are bad for the planet and stuff like that, yada yada yada. So it's kind of like they sort of jumped on the bandwagon at that point, and it's like no matter what he says, he's been binaried. He's been binaried as the baddie, and that's it now.
Yeah.
So it's
there was a fair share of people taking it too far and bringing his family into it, and so the people that are going across the line as usual because it's Twitter, they can get away with it. So to anyone that doesn't understand how this can be useful, so if you've got a AAA studio, they can afford voice actors and they pay them the expensive rates. If they've got a lot of dialogue in the game, they pay a lot of money because it's a high cost. If you're a small indie studio and you can't afford that, you've got a couple of options. You can go text only, so you have to read everything. You can do kind of what Boyfriend Dungeon did, where they paid for voice actors, but only a few lines are actually read by the actors, and then the majority is written, so you read it. Or you can go down the voice library route. So it's like when you have TikTok and you hear the male voice and the female voice reading out what's written down. It's kind of like that. So it kind of sounds robotic. And so in an artistic medium, that might not be the best option. So this is hopefully using AI to sort of fill in the gaps around it out, make it sound a bit more human. So they need voice actors to give a few different colors to the palette, I suppose. So you can choose from a number. I watched the Play, Watch, Listen episode that they addressed on this. It's their latest episode that was out on Saturday. Yesterday. If you're watching this on Monday, it was out on Saturday, so it's a couple of days ago. And the reason why he said he partnered with them is because he liked the idea that indie devs could own the voice that they've paid for, and no one else could use it. So it's almost like owning a color, which some people obviously don't like, but it's owning a voice actor's voice, so that no one else can use it, and it's taken off of the market, if you like. So it's like buying an asset that only certain people can own, and what that does is it retains the value in the price, because that means that you can only find that sound experience at that game.
Yeah.
So if it's a very unique voice, like a very unique sort of dragon-y type voice, or a very unique sort of monster voice, you don't want to have lots of indie devs releasing video games with the same sounding like monster voice. You want it to be unique, and that's why voice actors like Troy are in high demand, because their range is high. Mm-hmm. So they can put on lots of different voices and lots of different accents, and half the time you don't even recognize Troy, and it's only until you read the credits that you go, Troy was that person. I didn't even recognize him. So he wants to create something that people can own, which is great. He wants to create technology because he understands that technology is advancing, and he doesn't think that it's going to take away jobs from voice actors. I can understand those points. He didn't really care about the NFT side of things. It doesn't sound like he understood what the NFT side was, but I watched the Play, Watch, Listen, and Alana and Mike definitely are against NFTs. Austin would probably, to summarize how Austin feels, he probably trusts Alana and Mike's views and they've researched it more, and Austin hasn't researched it to a degree to speak much about it. But Mike certainly has, and Alana has. And so the podcast was basically them saying how Troy put his foot in it with the tweet, how it was insensitive, and how they understood that he didn't mean what he meant, how it read was bad, and that you can understand why people were angry. And Troy took all the criticism really well, all the legitimate, justified criticism.
Yeah, he's a good guy for
everything.
Everything that's been said and all that. Like, I don't think he's deserving of the harassment, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he apologized for the tweet. He apologized for the tweet, and he apologized for the wording, and he didn't mean to segregate people. And so that's so. One point I thought when I heard that was, that's really sad, because a lot of people have read the tweet and then they've gone not following Troy Baker again, or they're like, I'm not going to play any more of his games, and they've cancelled him. People have, some people have cancelled him, whether or not majority to say whether or not he's cancelled, whatever, but they can say, oh, I loved you in The Last of Us, and I'm really disappointed that I'm not going to play this now because of your
at the same time though, I don't think, I mean, whenever I hear them sort of things, because I've certainly been on the other end of that as well, like in terms of the company that I work at, like constantly people are saying, oh, I'm never going to buy their games again, but the sales just keep going up. It's sort of like, I'm not sure if this is just Twitter talk for them to, like, that's the only way they can like hold power over anyone, is to say, I'm not going to buy your thing, when actually they probably are. And they're just not going to tell anyone that they did, because they still enjoy their thing. Like, they're still going to play The Last of Us Part 3, or they're going to play the Last of Us Part 1 remake when it comes out. Like, I don't think any of these people are going to be like, oh, NFTs are bad, therefore I'm never going to like listen to anything.
Can't play. Yeah.
Stupid.
Well, this is the thing, that people should listen and pay attention and take on board things and hear the argument, because at the end of the podcast, Mike went to Troy, like, from what you want is noble, and like they talked about the ethics of the voice actors and whether or not there's enough money for everyone and if there's enough gigs, and they came to the conclusion, like, the industry's growing at such a rate that like the voice, like if this artificial intelligence can make it sound good enough, then it's not going to take money away from people, and the AAA stuff is always going to need voice actors for bespoke work. So if anything, it's just going to mean that voice actors in the industry are probably going to work on more AAA stuff, which I think to the voice actors, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, they're not going to complain about that.
They're just going to get more AAA work.
Yeah, I think. And wouldn't it, like, in a weird way, wouldn't it like create more work for people if you think about it? Because if Troy Baker's voice on this, like this voiceover NFT thing, if it can only be bought once or maybe even a handful of times, then it's very unique in that respect. Like, if he just like uploaded his voice to some random website where you could just use his voice over and over and over and over again, and there was like 10,000 indie studios out there that just used Troy Baker's voice. Like, if that was the case and it wasn't segregated off, then wouldn't that sort of promote like more industry work? Because like, this voiceover NFT thing is only like the one-off sort of thing. Like, obviously putting the NFT sort of environment stuff aside, but like just that argument in and of itself of like, this is bad, like for the voiceover industry, which is nonsense in and of itself, because the industry is constantly growing, but like it sort of seems like this is a good thing in that respect, because like it sort of gates off this being used over and over again to the point that it isn't going to hurt other people. Like, so it's I don't really understand. The
technology sounds interesting. It sounds great, and it sounds like something I'd love to get involved with. Mike's point was great though, because he said what you're describing can exist. There's no reason why it needs to exist with NFT. It doesn't need to have anything to do with cryptocurrency involved in the technology. And more to the point, Troy wanted people to own it, but it because it's software running with ownership off the back of something that's on a server, they can't own it anyway. So it's only as long as the company exists that the software will exist, because it's to do with NFT. So if anything, it's limiting it. If you just had a software company release a piece of software, the piece of software can exist. If the company goes bust, the software in whatever version it is will exist. There might not be any updates, but if it's a sound library of artificial intelligence words that's a group of sound, like a database of sound waves, there's no reason why that can't exist on the internet forever. But with NFTs, the company has to stay afloat. They can't cash out or dip out or, default. So it's actually harming what Troy actually wanted to get involved with. So the podcast ended with Mike saying, I'm going to make it my personal mission. If this is what you want to do, like help creators have something that they can own, I'm going to help you get a solution that you can get involved with. So, and Troy agreed to that. So this might not even be happening. So like,
it absolutely will not happen.
Yeah,
it will not happen.
Off the back of this Twitter storm, we could actually be better off with environments, because this could be a wake-up call for bigger companies. Troy could be opening his eyes up, and this backlash has caused him to open his eyes and reevaluate his involvement with companies, considering the environment more, which I think is great.
Yeah, sure.
So he could have done more good than harm by actually partnering up with this company, which is crazy, because it's someone like Troy Baker with the reputation in the games industry.
I mean, in a perfect world, I agree 100%. Like, I think like when it comes to people making these sorts of mistakes, for lack of a better term, like if you, depending on which way your opinion goes on NFTs and cryptocurrency and all that sort of stuff in the environment, in a perfect world, like people making these sort of mistakes and then learning from them, and then it becomes this learning experience, and everyone's like, okay, cool, like we've actually figured out this new method where it's even better for the environment, and like we've figured out these ideas through a means that is better. In a perfect world, that's great, absolutely, but this is Twitter. This is not a perfect world.
Yes.
And now, like the way, like I've constantly said this over the past few years, and it's I've yet to see any other reason for it not to be true, but Twitter is very much, it's based on two buckets. You're either in the good bucket or you're in the bad bucket. That's it. There's no flaw, there's no gray area, there's no third bucket. There's just these two buckets. That's it. That's all you're in. You're either in the good bucket or the bad bucket.
If you've not said you're not in one bucket, then you're in that bucket according to whoever's in the other bucket.
Well, the masses like determine this. That's the thing. And the weird thing about the buckets is that they are not interchangeable. You cannot jump from one to the other constantly. You can be taken out of the good bucket and put in the bad bucket any day of the week, but you can never be taken out of the bad bucket and be put in the good bucket, in terms of the masses, like, and how they sort of treat people, in terms of like any mistakes that they happen to make or opinions that they have which aren't agreeable with everyone else. Like if you get put in the bad bucket, you're sort of in there forever, unfortunately. That's just the deal. And like we obviously see that with, it doesn't matter for whatever reason. It can be for a perfectly good reason, if it's like a public figure that literally represents people and should be like put out of power for whatever reason, or if it's right Donald Trump, like we're putting him out there, right? Sure, like certain people are in the bad bucket for a reason, because they are supposed to represent someone, and they're supposed to be leading certain countries and things like that, and they're literally affecting your daily life. But then if you get someone like Troy Baker, and now he's been put in the bad bucket because of NFTs and in the bad bucket, then he's been dragged in with it. It doesn't matter how much learning he does. It doesn't matter how much he comes out and says, okay, this is a learning experience, I'm actually going to do this, I'm not going to do this anymore, the NFT stuff isn't going to go forward. People are still going to like look at Troy Baker and be like, no, you're still bad because you did this one thing on Twitter that one time. And that's the unfortunate sort of side effect of all of this. Like, in a perfect world, this is a massive learning experience for people in NFTs and the environment. But
especially if they mute the word NFT, they're not going to see. If he changes his way, they're not going to find out about it. They might find out about it through other means, but they're not engaging with the platform. They're choosing to filter things out, and that can have potentially undesirable consequences where you don't find if someone is back in your own moral good bucket. You don't find out. So more people end up in your bad bucket that might, if you just sat down and chatted with them, might be in your good bucket. There
just shouldn't be any buckets. That's the thing. Like we've lost the ability to have a discussion, almost. That's the weird thing. Like, we've got this nice freeing thing where Twitter is a soundboard of opinions and everyone's discussing things, but ironically it's actually very, very restrictive in terms of what you can and can't say, because as soon as you're put in the bad bucket, like, you lose work, you lose fandom, you lose like any sort of standing that you have in your community. And it's bad, man. Like, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, this is a bad sort of way around it. Like this, like, yeah, well, you know, I feel sorry for Troy Baker in a way, because like he probably thought this was a very good thing. He probably saw this as an uplifting thing for his community of voice actors. And just because voice NFT, because the word NFT and voiceover, that's it. Like, people just automatically, like, you're bad.
This is 100% bad. You're bad. Everything. I can't like anything that you used to do until I found out you were, you know, up until now I know you're bad, then I can't like this. Austin Wintory put a comment on there saying, my abuse of this tool begins immediately. Now, what he meant by that is that he's going to make Troy say silly things and tease Troy about it.
Right.
That's what he meant. Other people kind of like, he's going to use the tool because his friend is on board, and that means that Austin is
death by
Austin
association.
Wintory.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And he's had his fair share of grilling, and then some people were like, does he mean this? Does he not mean this? And there was a bit of correction going on the old Twitter feed, and Austin actually mentioned this in the podcast where it got corrected. It was like, no, he's a friend, but he's been on the record and saying he doesn't support NFTs. And then one of the replies to that was something along the lines of, oh, in that case, Journey is good again. And he thought that was he knew it was a joke, and he thought it was funny, and he laughed.
No, but it's not. That's the thing.
But
like, that
he knows that some people are going to be actually thinking that, and that the comment was meant as a joke, and it was funny, but
nailed it.
It was funny because it's true. It's funny because some people will be going, I can't like Journey now because I know that Austin is associated with Troy, and Troy doesn't like NFTs. And
ridiculous, right? Like, the absolute knots and like bounds that they have to put these like themselves through just to be able to like justify what they're sort of for and against. And like I see this a lot because like there's a lot of talk around like J.K. Rowling on Twitter as well at the moment, obviously because of the trans community and things like that. A lot of people haven't even read like what she actually wrote and things like that. But there's a lot of hate for Harry Potter now, which is sort of like, okay, is it the fault of the Harry Potter IP, or is this a problem that you should have with J.K. Rowling as the author? Like, when do you separate the creation from someone and not punish one for the other? You know, and this is, and it's a similar thing for Journey, I guess. Like when you know, like, Austin's like a part of this community of NFT lovers now, so therefore I can't like Journey. It's like, where do them two things connect at any point?
Yeah.
You know, like,
and what if they're what if loads of people that work on Journey that hate NFTs, and so by not supporting their work, you know, that they're not able to pursue that agenda as much, or it just gets to the point where when you're
very bizarre,
when you're criticizing and hating on something that a group of people that came together to create something that don't have any agenda, aren't aligned politically, that do have discourse internally and do have different opinions, that it's only it's very strange fraction of money that goes to, I mean, J.K. Rowling's minted beyond reason. She doesn't
the publisher
need your
way
money.
More minted. That's the
she doesn't need your money now, so she's not going to miss the fact that you might not buy a new version of Harry Potter on DVD.
Too late, you know, like that ship is sailed.
She's already run. Like, voting with your wallet with something like this doesn't, so, you know, use your voice, but I don't know. There's no advice we can give to Twitter people to be bad at Twitter, is there? No, we can. What advice I would say is watch the latest episode of Play, Watch, Listen, because you see an episode where there's 4 people on a call. One is a bit indifferent. One, it was pro for this scheme, and 2 are very against. And you see them talk it out, and they're all friends, and it's how Discord and discourse should be exercised, and it's how it should go. And if you want to see people with differing in opinions and different thoughts and different reasons for doing things coming together and giving their side of the story, I highly recommend watching that episode, because it's just I couldn't do it, to be honest, because I have strong views myself, and I wouldn't have been able to be so eloquent in my responses and questions, and they do it in such a
I think
really
most, but
way.
This is the thing though. I think like if you get a group of 4 friends together that have different opinions, because like one of the best things about my marriage, I guess, like is with my wife, we have disagreements all the time, and I don't mean disagreements about like having an argument about like, oh, you didn't do the dishes or whatever, right? Like we have disagreements on like political issues, or we have disagreements on something that will happen online somewhere, or like we have diametrically opposing views, and we will sit down and we'll have a conversation about it. And I think most people will, and they'll just talk stuff out. And they'll give each other's points of views, and they'll be like, okay, but I kind of feel like it this way because of X, Y, and Z. And you understand from that perspective, it's like, okay, this doesn't come from a place of hate. It doesn't come from a place of like, I'm in the binary bucket and you're the enemy sort of thing. It's just, people are just having a discussion. And I think that is the advice that you're trying to give, I guess, like to the Twitter people, is like, be prepared to have the discussion. That's all like that we should have, like with any of these issues. Like we're talking about Troy Baker or NFTs or J.K. Rowling, whatever. Like prepare to have the discussion, because if you're automatically putting the shields up and being like, no, I my position is here and this is where I will die on this hill and I will not buy from anything from you people. Like if you're one of those people, then yeah, you kind of are the enemy in that respect, because you're not willing to have the conversation. You're not willing to contribute, because at the end of the day, as much as like people don't like it, like NFTs, like in terms of the environment and stuff like that, and I totally agree, like that is a problem when it comes to the environment. NFTs are here to stay, if you like it or not. Like that, this is the reality of it.
They're making too much money.
Way too much money. It's not going anywhere. So we've got to learn how to not just constantly be diametrically opposed to NFTs, which you can be, like without a doubt, but you've got to come with a solution mindset. You've got to come with, okay, if NFTs are here to stay, how can we make them better for the environment? How can we make them more green? How can we do X, Y, and Z? How can we change practices so it's ethical and like people aren't being scammed by NFTs for whatever reason? You know, like if it's being like people are getting their work manipulated online and being resold as NFTs on OpenSea and stuff like that, a massive problem, and we should solve that, because like this thing is here to stay, and just being opposed to it is not enough. It's not, because it's going to stay. Like we need to come up with solutions for this.
Well, this is one of the things that happened off the backlash of the Twitter episode of the podcast. Some people took a picture that Alana Pierce owned and put a pornography background on the back of it. So used a known like branch of pornography, put that on the background, minted that picture, and sold it on a blockchain.
Sure.
So all of that's illegal, and but they've done it, and so they're open to some problems there. But this is the sort of backlash that people get when you speak out about this sort of thing. So it is a bit of a battleground at the moment. So it's
without doubt.
We know it's because it's unregulated. So we need regulation to protect consumers. So we need the government to get involved and sort of. I mean,
and this is, I guess this is where, like, because I don't really have obviously outside of the environmental stuff, like I don't really have an opinion on cryptocurrency and NFTs and the blockchain and all that sort of stuff. I don't agree with it. I don't disagree with it. I just do not have an opinion on it, because it's way too, like, to me personally, it's way too, it's not mature enough. Like it's a very immature technology. Like it's very, very early days for this thing. And when it matures out, it might become this great thing, which NFT advocates are sort of, they've are constantly pushing for it. Say, it's gonna like be the future, and we're gonna have this new currency, and it's gonna be like really secure and all sorts. And one day, maybe we will get there, sort of thing. But we're not there yet, and people have got to be willing to have that discussion and sort of explain where it is right now, and like how, like the steps that need to be made to get to that the promised land of like the perfect sort of cryptocurrency world or whatever. Yeah, and it's just this weird cesspool of just people being in binary buckets, and this is just not going to go away. It's just not. It's and it's the same with Harry Potter. I'm sorry, but Harry Potter isn't going to go away either. Like as much as you hate J.K. Rowling, like this,
many people love it.
Them books aren't going anywhere, man. Like people are still going to be walking around with Gryffindor scarves on. I'm sorry, but that's the world that we live in, and we've got to learn how to have that discussion, because the people that aren't willing to have the discussion are most of the time the people that are opposed of it.
And the important thing is, the people that are wearing those Gryffindor scarves, that doesn't mean anything to do with their agenda on
on the trans community. Yeah,
like it says nothing about their opinion. Yeah, it doesn't mean they're supporting J.K. Rowling's views, or that they even understand what J.K. Rowling's views are. Or they probably don't even know about the Twitter thing, because it is an isolated incident. It's not everyone that knows about the J.K. Rowling thing. Like my mum definitely doesn't know. So like, there's a certain age group that are aware of it. The majority of people haven't even got a clue.
Yeah.
And I would say most people that have got a strong opinion on it, I wouldn't be surprised if most of them hadn't read everything she'd written about it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember when, like, sort of go off on a tangent, nothing to do with video games, but like when the whole J.K. Rowling thing sort of kicked off, I was like, what the hell is this even talking about? So like, I didn't even know what was happening. So I was like, okay, I went onto J.K. Rowling's website, found the essay that she wrote on her opinions about the trans community, and I was like, okay, that's reasonable. I don't agree with it, but like that's I can see how she came to them sort of conclusions.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything of it.
I could highlight what was a bit insensitive.
Sure, without a doubt. But
downright, not just insensitive. I could highlight things that I would find that. I can understand how.
Yeah, how it's insulted.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. And I remember after that though, I was like, okay, I've got the context now. Really interesting to see people put J.K. Rowling in the evil person bucket of the bad binary Twitter bucket that hadn't read that essay, that just heard that J.K. Rowling was now anti-trans, therefore she's in the bad bucket, therefore she's evil, and that's it.
Yeah.
And just because like through just the power of like them hearing it third or second hand or whatever, like, and they didn't actually not have the whole context. It was very strange.
Yeah.
Like and that's the sort of problem with Twitter more than anything, is that perpetual sort of the ripples that it has to other people where, oh, I heard from so and so that person is bad, therefore they're in the bad bucket for me as well. And that is really strange. And it's kind of a shame that Troy Baker might be going through that himself. Like, people are just going to be automatically assuming now Troy Baker hates the planet.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not going to buy The Last of Us Part 1 sort of thing. That is really strange to me.
This is the thing. If you ask Troy Baker, do you want to sign yourself up with a company and a byproduct of this being successful is that in the current state of things, the environment is worse off? He would say no.
Right.
He partnered with a company that was creating software that did a specific thing that he liked the sound of. So, yeah.
But nuance dies on Twitter.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Unfortunately, won't know that he didn't. People just assume he's an expert. He knew what he was doing, and he hates the planet. Like, that's kind of like. Yeah. He's not. He doesn't. He's just a guy like everyone else. People just
jump. People jump from like 0 to 70 in an instant, you know. And it's like, Christ, let's just have a discussion about it.
We need to be able to forgive mistakes, or at least we need the same. Like, and he had other tweets which he had tweeted after that as well, and corrected some of the things, and he has apologized for the insensitivity of the tweet. And it's like, we can't let people make mistakes anymore. And it's like, that's what everyone makes mistakes. Everyone's thought the wrong thing. Everyone's corrected themselves.
Yeah, it's called learning.
It just seems,
like, how do you think you learn? Like, you learn through making
Twitter,
mistakes.
It just seems on Twitter we don't get away with it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because we're all guilty of it.
It's the equivalent of like a games developer like looking at a sheet of code in Visual Studio, and every time, like, if they ever see the compiler kick out an error, then it, instead of like it kicking out an error and saying, hey, you made a mistake, it just shuts down, and you can never like reinstall Visual Studio again. It's like, you're out. Sorry,
you made a mistake. Failed coding.
Right, you failed. You know, and it's like, wait, what? Like, we don't even get a warning, sort of thing. It's like, okay, you know, and that's the equivalent. And it's sort of insane that we do that with Twitter, because like everyone that's sort of ridiculing Troy Baker and ridiculing these people online, like them people make mistakes all the time. It's just nobody notices because they're nobodies, or like they're just not as, like, they're not in the limelight as much. And it's very, very strange to me. Like, we need to have discussions. Like, I'm very liberal, I'm very left, but I'm very anti like sort of cancel culture as well in that respect. Like, we need to have discussions on these things. We can't just like get rid of people, because this stuff will flip around. Like, in the 80s, like, we grew up in the 90s with comedians in the UK like making all this content about conservative cancel culture and how they were constantly trying to like silence people and stuff. And now it's just sort of flipped completely.
Yeah.
And it's and it will flip back. This will go back the other way. As much as people think that it won't, it will. It absolutely will.
As far as it goes one way, it will flip as much on the other end. Yeah. 100%. So we need to meet people in the middle.
We need to be careful, man. Like, this is not the way we should be doing this. We should be able to have discussions and figure this sort of stuff out. Because when you do have discussions as well, like, so much stuff gets figured out. like in a good
Yeah.
way, like which is
Well,
better.
we were saying this before on the show. Like this isn't a political agenda thing. It's not a political
Not at
alignment
all.
thing. It seems to be in like problematic due to the platform. It seems to be like a platform thing. When you don't get
Right.
people that can look each other in the eye and make a case and have that human feedback, that empathy doesn't get registered. So it could just be the fact that we can't see anyone's faces and we're just
They're just
reading words
icons,
and
right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Austrian Wintries is a face hugger, so you could easily have a go at that because it's evil. So
Yeah, it's now in the
Yeah.
bad binary bucket. God damn
Yeah.
it, face huggers.
yeah, and in other news, Zanya was sold for £11 billion.
Zanga. Yeah, Zanga?
Zanga.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah.
Oh, Zanga. Sorry, I missed out the G. Zanga. Yep. They made Farmville, and so Grand Theft Auto video game maker Take-Two Interactive said it would buy Zanga for $11.04 billion.
Cool. Okay.
Stupid money. Doesn't make any it's crazy money.
I saw one comment on this, like that was positive towards, like, and no one else cares about this also. It's fascinating.
No.
It's like twice as much money as the Bethesda acquisition.
Yeah.
But like
It had
nobody
more of an
cares.
impact though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it affected what people could play and what people couldn't play. This doesn't really affect what people can play.
No,
really,
this
does it?
is Take-Two just trying to make more money, which, more power to them. They're a company, but 11 billion is like Bezos money. It's ridiculous. It's not in the realm of reality anyway. But the only comment which I saw that was like even remotely positive on this is like, oh, we might get a GTA 4 remaster on iOS now. And it's like, seriously, that's the priority list that we're putting in here. Like, this is insane. So yeah, I don't think this matters to the average gamer, because this story was like blip on the map, but the Bethesda story was going on for weeks and people were talking about it.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a crazy amount of money, and it's crazy how there's been not much ripple on the old internet, because it doesn't really affect what games are going to come out, who's going to play what. If you're a fan of GTA and the only thing you can play it on is an iPad, and you're sat there going, "Oh, I wish GTA wasn't an iPad," and you don't have any consoles, you don't have any PC, then yeah, this affects you.
Sure.
And please let us know in the comments if
You are one of
we've
those
missed
people.
anything else where it's like, yeah, if you're that person.
God.
And or if there's anything else that might possibly affect you, that people are still going to be able to play Farmville, I guess.
I just don't know who this is for. Like, I just don't. Like, I understand, like,
It's just companies buying
Take-Two
want to
buy like stuff for more money and stuff, but this isn't going to gate anything off. It isn't going to change anything. It's just going to make, like, Grand Theft Auto 5 paid off for them big time, and they're just like, they're cashing in now and they're making investments for the future before GTA 6 comes out. Which I get it, but it's kind of like, to the average gamer though, this does not affect a single thing, because you could totally play GTA 4 on your iPad through GamePass, I think, anyway. So it's kind of like, all right, dope.
So it doesn't affect anything. So yeah, it's crazy how part of the story when Bethesda acquisition happened with Microsoft, that the money was a huge talking point, as well as what that meant for who could play what on what platform.
Right.
That had huge ripples in the industry, like ground shifting. Like, there's so many parallel. This is a split in the timeline and the divergence of what happened if that's, that hadn't happened, and what the games market is going to be like over the next.
Most
5 to 10
notably,
years.
Starfield, was the big sort of like the big talking
huge.
point for that. Yeah, it was a big deal. But
the money was also
very
a huge factor, and this just shows, that money really wasn't anything. But but what it meant for gamers was the story, and so it's kind of at least cleared that up. So next time there's a big sum of money acquisition for a games company, we don't know if that has anything to do with how it's going to affect gamers. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely put it into perspective, that's for sure. But I don't know who is excited about this. Like, just okay, cool.
Let us know in the comments.
Right, please.
Who
is this
what
for?
we've not thought of. Yeah. But I can't think of anything else to say about that story.
No idea. Yeah, that basically caps us off, I guess, for the whole episode anyway. But thank you very much for joining us. Sorry about the sort of Twitter rant and speculation around.
Be better, internet people.
Just talk, have a discussion. I don't know.
Let us know in the comments how you feel about this. Are we being too harsh? Are we on the money?
Do we have any money? Probably not. We don't have Zynga money, that's for sure. Yeah.
Subscribe in that case. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so that you can help us get that milestone
right.
eventually.
We're almost there. I think
years.
we've got like 250 subscribers now, so a few more and we'll be at Take-Two Interactive sort of, buying Zynga money. So just a bit more. So if you can keep pushing, we would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, we've got a Ko-Fi coffee thing.
Coffee. Yep, you can donate to us. Nobody has
if you really want to.
But if you want to be the first,
Zoom, professional Zoom. So Vin needs that subscription cost covering.
Indeed. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to chip in for that, that'd be great. Because
yeah. Speaking of which, I know. Speaking of which, like the subscriber amount, 250, costs about that much for like a Zoom professional. So yeah, like there you go for a year. So if every single one of our subscribers like chucked us a $1 coffee,
chucked a quid in,
yeah, we'd
be 250 quid for a year.
Not 250 quid, but $250. So it'd be less than that. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, just give us some money. I don't know. Like I'm kidding, obviously. Like we don't actually care. Like if you want to donate, but we would appreciate a like, and we would appreciate the subscribe if you do. Chris, where can people find you?
So I put my indie game dev stuff on Twitter at Acrylic Pixel. I've got a YouTube channel that I don't use anymore, which is Acrylic Pixel, and I've started to go on TikTok, which is you're
one of those people now.
Acrylic Pixel. So I've added my indie game dev stuff on TikTok.
And
it grows way faster than Twitter. I'll tell you that, man.
How do I mute you?
I've had like 500 views on each video.
Do I just
likes?
Do I just mute him like this? TikTok.
Yeah, get on it, man. Man, that's time. That's a lose time with that.
Yeah, but TikTok is literally just
junk.
Yeah, exactly. It's a time sink, and you don't really get anything
out of it. It's like fast food social media.
That's a good way of describing it. Actually,
it doesn't fill you up, but you can't stop.
Right, but you can't. I don't know. Like, I don't think that the people that you attract on TikTok, like, they don't leave the system, sort of thing. So if you're like, everyone look at my indie game, is that going to convert to numbers? Like, I don't think so. I think it's just people looking at like 5-second clips, like, oh, that's funny. Oh, that's cool.
I'm banking on the fact it might do in the next sort of year and a half. That's what I'm banking on.
Yeah, let me know. I need to start doing video logs for my game. That's for sure. Because I know that brings in views.
But we do this podcast and we do the Indie Dev Roundtable.
We do
like once every month. So check that out on the YouTube channel. That's on there.
Yeah.
And where else apart from that can we find you though, Vin?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter. I am at Hillthought Games. Most of my indie stuff and my various opinions on all of these matters are sort of floating around on Twitter. So if you are interested, then please follow me on there. But I'm also on ArtStation for concept art, which is about to fill up pretty soon within the next sort of weekish.
For
talk about that
extraction stuff.
Indeed. So yeah, there's going to be some stuff getting uploaded to that very, very soon. So if you are interested in concept art, then please come find me on there. I am Vin Hill Art. So yep, give me a search. I'll show up. I'm always on Google anyway. Like if you search my name on Google, I am basically like the herpes of the internet. I never go away. So just give me a Google and you'll find me. Like I've made it my mission to be on the first page of everything, and not like in an egotistical sense. It's just a basically like as a business sort of side of it.
Because your name is quite unique, isn't it?
There's that. I'm very lucky. Like Vin Hill is a very unique name, thankfully. It's not
many politicians. I'm like Australian politicians.
Christopher Jarvis is a very
charity workers. Yeah,
that's like British Norman. Like that, you can't get any more English than Christopher Jarvis.
Yeah, well, it's a French surname. But that checks out. It's Norman invasion.
Right.
French Gervais. Yeah.
Gervais.
So I'll be distantly related to Ricky Gervais.
Oh wow! Have they got the same?
Yeah, it's the same name. It's the same name.
Fascinating. And one of them just couldn't pronounce it when they got off the boat, I guess. And that's why one turned the G. Right.
One decided to do a J.
Right.
And they got off the boat, and that was that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah. Anyway.
We've eked out this outro.
We have. Like it's been going on far too long. But please like and subscribe, comment, all that sort of good stuff. And we will be right here again next Sunday. And if you're not like wanting to watch us live on YouTube, then you can find us on Anchor and Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, all that sort of good stuff. Wherever you find your podcast services, we will be there.
Yes.
So from us at the Polygon Forest, thank you very much.
Yeah. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.